Hello and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm your host, Demosthenes, and we're here to celebrate Thanksgiving with quite possibly one of the only few great Thanksgiving movies out there, 1987's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, starring the ever-lovable Steve Martin and John Candy. When was the first time that you guys saw this movie? Because this was I saw the vacation movies beforehand. The first one, obviously written and created by John Hughes, who also wrote and directed Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I think ever since that first vacation movie, I've always had an affinity for road trip movies. I love funny road trip movies. They're also the type of specific subgenre of comedy that I think is a little difficult to pull off successfully. But this is easily one of the very best, arguably, possibly by some the best of them all. I saw when I was a young kid. I loved it.
Listen, man, by the time I saw this film, I knew it was more dated than Courtney Love, okay? Like, I'm watching this and I'm going, more ball handling than Larry Bird. Good God. That's 20 years ago. So I knew I was a little late on the original filming of the movie in question, but I can say that you knew, what drew me to it was all the greats involved. The two specific, I shouldn't say all the two greats, comedy greats who were involved in the first place. I mean, this goes far enough back to where it's significantly earlier than Wagons East, which I believe was John Candy's last movie. So, it was probably after John Candy helped Joe Montana win a Super Bowl with the Niners, but easily before Wagons East, obviously.
So I didn't see this movie until well after John Candy had been gone. I think I was in my mid to late 20s when I finally saw it. And as a matter of fact, I can probably help nail that down a little bit more. I saw it a month before I saw the movie Due Date, which ended up being a more bastardized version of Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. So there you go. Whenever Due Date came out, a month before that was when I saw it. Yeah.
I don't remember the date that Due Date came out. We'll have to double check on that. I think I saw it about the time that he died. I distinctly remember the first anything that I saw John Candy in. The first time I ever saw him live action was Home Alone, also by John Hughes. John Hughes and John Candy had a bit of a history. I mean, he was also in Uncle Buck and so forth. And I think the first film I ever heard him in was Rescuers Down Under, one of Disney's most underrated films of the early 90s, but that's off topic. I love this. I love this pairing, and it's interesting when I watch it, especially now that I watch it. Like I've always had a connection with the Steve Martin character, the straight guy just trying to get to where he needs to go, and he just can't get away from the craziness. But I love the fact that there is a natural progression for John Candy's character. You can see how this guy can be the most obnoxious creature ever, but at the same time, you do feel for him, and it's a trend that gets progressively stronger and stronger and stronger to the twist ending, which we won't spoil at the particular moment.
I could argue that John Candy is the greatest product out of the Second City Television of all time. At me all you want, bitches, okay? You don't even know who Joe Flaherty is. You think Eugene's Levy is all that in a bag of chips because his son effed a pie in a movie. You think Catherine O'Hara's so great because she left her friggin' son in an airport somewhere. You think Dave Thomas is all that in a bag of chips because he went, no. And you think Rick Moranis is all that in a bag of chips because he was a freaking Darth Vader parody and a guy who sung about a okay, actually, you know what? Let's walk back. Anyways, so listen, man. No, but listen, I could argue that John Candy is the greatest among that group. And people might go to war with me with Rick Moranis, but man, I bet I can mount a great response. So at the very least, top 2 Second City alumni. I said it. So yeah, I'll take that paired with Steve Martin. Yes, please. And the movie delivers in a way where you at least have a good chemistry.
I think that, it was a strong attempt at bringing a new Jack Lemmon and
Walter Matthau.
The Odd Couple. I mean, this is the Odd Couple road trip movie. And you got John Candy. He is the polar opposite of of Steve Martin's character. I mean, Mr. Page, he's just clean cut guy. He's very straight to the point. He's very cutthroat. And then you got Mr. Griffith. He's just this fun loving. Everybody loves. He's everybody's friend. He wants to socialize, and I mean they couldn't be more opposite. And obviously, you get to watch the movie and you see when you spend more time with somebody that you think you have absolutely nothing in common with, you find a common ground if you're just willing to open up. But until that happens, there's going to be that continued friction. And look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, bro. Like, I'd have a hard time. Look, I'm a fun-loving guy, but I have a hard time with Mr. Griffith, man. Like, bro, like that. When I'm at work, man, and I'm just imagining being with Mr. Griffith is just way too much. John Candy played that role, but I want to get that out there. He played the role. The pairing was awesome because both of them were strong and they owned the character.
I find it really awesome that you compare it to The Odd Couple, because in many ways this is the Odd Couple road trip movie. Oddly enough, 12 years before they actually did Odd Couple 2, which was the Odd Couple Road movie. So do you think that this is a film that relies on the chemistry of this duo? Obviously, I don't think the film would be as far remembered or cherished by many if it wasn't for the chemistry. But in comparison to the actual plot, it is a bit of a typical road trip movie. It doesn't build up to this grand climax like, let's say, the Griswold movie. I noticed you're wearing that Griswold shirt, TJ, which is kick-ass. He doesn't, you don't have Steve Martin, taking a gun and trying to take over the milk truck at the end to get back home. Relatively speaking, the last leg of their trip is probably the most mundane section of the film. The biggest climactic moment is entirely character driven.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very legit point by you, but I think that's part of why this movie lands the way it does, despite being air quotes the least climactic part of the film being the last leg of the trip. A lot of cases, the least climactic part of a trip is the last leg of the damn thing. You know where you are now. Everything is familiar. Once I get to 436, I know I can basically probably blindfolded drive back to my house. Not that I would practice it. I like my vehicle too much. However, what the climax actually is in terms of the character-driven concept is what makes it more real. Listen, I know that you have to suspend belief in some places. Ain't no way that burned up POS they end up driving towards the end of the movie actually runs. No, not going to happen. Wouldn't be a thing. I know a lot of things that take place in this movie are beyond unbelievable, but I think something this movie does, in addition to all the character-driven stuff, this movie have you guys noticed that the pace of this movie is incredibly, I'm not going to say it's breakneck fast, but it's certainly, let's put it this way, if Dale Griffith was using the tempo of this movie for an exercise plan, he'd come out just as built as Steve Martin is for a white-haired dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, you see him with his shirt off in some of these scenes, and like, dude, you should not have biceps like that and white hair. But I say all that to say the tempo of this movie is incredibly quick, and it's agile enough for you to wait. Did he? Oh, okay. All right. Fine. Okay, Ham, you actually thought that was 2 pillows at first. Okay, whatever. I hope it doesn't smell bad. But listen, so I think any sort of suspense of belief or perception of a slowing climax is assisted or at least more easily overlooked by the tempo of the movie.
I think it's very interesting that you should bring up the tempo, because this script I tracked down the original script. It's 144 pages long. To put it in perspective, roughly a page of script translates to a minute of film. So from the get-go, they're looking at filming 2.5 hour movie. Most of the best comedies are about the 90-minute mark, maybe 100 minutes. Look at some of the most well-regarded comedies of all time. More likely than not, they're in that buffer right there. This film had a lot, they cut out quite a bit. The script has a lot of differences. In the original version, Candy just followed him home. They didn't have the twist. I've read reports that in an earlier version, Candy was a vampire trying to get invited into the house, because in vampire lore, you have to be invited in the house before you can feast. I haven't been able to verify this, but apparently this concept is out there.
You know, I had this thought, Demos. I don't mean to cut you off, TJ. I had this thought, Demos, that elements of this shiz, if you made it suspenseful or a horror movie, could be very Hitchcockian in that similar way that you can pump information from a school marb and stuff like that. But I digress.
More strangers on a train, plane, and automobile.
Boom.
That's what I was saying. This is the hilarious version of Strangers on a Train. I think that having Steve Martin and John Candy be as strong as they are, they were able to carry it. They didn't. There wasn't a need for any other huge name people to make cameos in this film. I think that the characters work that we got from the people who are relatively run of the mill for the most part. Everybody did their part, but just looking at just specifically to the plot of what you're talking about, I mean, it flowed. Everything flowed.
Yeah, I think that what grounded this film is there are some sequences in it, and some of the most highly quoted scenes from this film that are not played for laughs. That big first breakout fight that they have in the hotel room before the pillow scene is downright venomous.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, dude. Steve Martin goes to work, or rather I should say Martin Page goes to work on Dale Griffith like Richard Sherman went to work on Michael Crabtree, okay? It was crazy.
Neil Page, but
yeah.
I said Martin Page. Son of a...
Oh, Steve Martin.
Stone and light, mother...
Neil Page has a kid named Martin, so there is a Martin Page.
Yeah.
He destroyed him, bro. Like, he attacked him on a spiritual level. He said that this man's stories have no point. Like, he's like, I can sit through an insurance seminar forever, and they'll come to me and they'll ask me, how do you do it? He said, because I met Dale Griffith. And they'll say, I get it. Damn, man. Like, he destroyed him. And then Dale came back. My favorite, I like me. My wife likes that fight right there, man. That was too much. And it was just the beginning. That was a light eruption compared to the stuff that they were going to go. That's just the beginning of the crescendo, man. Because they were in for so much more, especially Pillow.
I love that you comment on Dale Griffith's response too, because first of all, that is a kind of a moving speech, and it's so moving that it puts Neil Page back in place to lie down in a beer-soaked mattress that he was just bitching about 30 seconds ago.
But I think that's one of the strengths that this film has, in the fact that these characters are not pushed to caricatures. They're not cartoons. They have real reactions. I can see myself having the same reactions that Steve Martin has in this film. I know. I have been on some crazy ass road trips before. I've had to bust it.
I've had that kind of reaction to some of your puns, Demos.
Don't you dare! Listen, I like me. My audience likes me. My friends like me.
That was good, dude.
Now get back in bed. Anyway, I've taken.
Let me find my pillows. I gotta find my pillows.
I've taken the crazy bus trip back home. I remember one time having to go on a bus, and to my horror, there were 18 to 20 Amish babies on there, all with bonnets, staring at me and saying, "Yeah, mother, we're gonna cry." And yet, I've never seen so many well-behaved babies in my life, and I think it has something to do with those bonnets.
Or they were scared of you.
Just
listen,
fine. Fine, I'll take it.
Okay, I'm not saying that to talk smack. I'm just saying, don't rule that out.
It was a 6-hour bus trip.
I'll never see these people again. Yeah.
But they're never turned into caricatures. Yeah, there are some moments. There are some pratfalls and there are some sight gags, which are a little over the top. It never takes like the Home Alone route. I think a lot of comedies would make the mistake that if they made this now, they would have it'd be hard to relate to any of the characters because of how far they take the comedy and how people would react. Take a look at the most recent Vacation movie and you'll have a perfect example of what I mean. These aren't real people. How can I relate to a cartoon character in a supposedly real situation? And the fact that this movie is rated R is ridiculous because of one scene with the F word. Give me a break. The fact that that bad language is enough to give you an R rating. PG-13 I get. But an R rating, I think, is ridiculous. Right? Kids in middle school use words are much, much harsher.
We're it's okay if we have people, doing, like intimating ass play and lifting somebody up by their testicles. That's cool. But the moment you say beep, the game's over, right?
Oh, it's the hypocrisy behind it. Oh, you're allowed to say it once or twice and get the PG-13. So what? What the hell are you talking about? Like, so it's okay. The kids can hear it once or twice, but if you say it 3 times, it's gonna stick in their heads.
I was about to say, we're approaching 20 times in that one scene, so I can see how it's the potential to be game changing. But at the day's end, we're talking words versus action. Yeah,
telling her to get that eating grin. Like, I'm just watching that, and she was wrong. She was wrong. She, customer service wise, she was not doing her job. I'm
Correct.
sorry.
Correct.
That she's at work and she doesn't want to be at work, and that she wants to talk to who I'm assuming is her brother. And she has to say gobble gobble whenever she gets off the phone. I'm
Great
sorry.
Great actress.
No. She did a phenomenal job because I legitimately thought that she was an asshole. Like, she did a job. Like,
he's a righteous dude. I get it.
I mean, I totally understood Neil's frustration in that moment. Now, granted, he went about it the wrong way, and you see what happens when you bring vinegar to the party.
I think the way that scene builds up, even before he starts speaking, that slow approach, that glare. Once again, that
his shoes,
everything about him. Using the tie to keep his ears warm.
Yes. Did y'all catch how she eyes him up and down and just knows some of that ish is gonna go down?
Yep.
May I help you? I mean, come on.
So now that you guys have seen it, I'm gonna ask you the two questions. One, of course, is it required viewing? And do you guys think that out of all the Thanksgiving movies that you have seen, is this the best? Or at the very least, a contender for the best? I'm going to go to you, Kyle.
So I'm a little bit in trouble that you went to me first, because I'm going to tackle the Thanksgiving movie thing first. Is it the best Thanksgiving movie I've seen? Yes. Because I'm pretty damn sure it's the only Thanksgiving movie I've seen. What the hell else is there? Seriously, outside of going to some silly thing. Like, I know they did a lot of Columbus movies for a while, but did they ever do a Plymouth Rock production? Do they ever have Squanto involved somewhere in this?
Squanto, A Warrior's Tale, was made into a movie by Disney.
How many years ago was that?
Oh, the 90s.
Was it that late? I don't know.
There aren't. You're right. There aren't that many things. Let's take out the some of the television specials. Let's take out. I'm sure there's a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. You count two.
I've got one.
What is?
What you got? Neil Page has got one.
Addams Family Values.
Yes, that's the only other one I can really think of.
Eat me, salted or barbecued. Eat me. We were your pets, but now we're food.
First of all, let's have a quick discussion for a minute. That's legit that you cite that song. It is adorable. I don't think that's a Thanksgiving movie. It kind of happens throughout the year. It just that camp gets out at about that time. So is that still a Thanksgiving movie? But you know what? Because there's so few of them, TJ, I'll let you slide it in there. Of course, this is better than that.
So,
got one.
Yes.
It's not.
If you say Pocahontas, man.
No, Thanksgiving is the backdrop for this movie. Zach and Mary make a porno.
No, that brings people together. I think that one of the reasons that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a perfect Thanksgiving movie is not just because they're trying to get to Thanksgiving dinner. It's the entire movie embodies the values of Thanksgiving. You know, you have family members, you have connections in your life that you don't necessarily like, but they're there for you. Um, and it's about being grateful for what you have. And I think that through Neil Page's journey, he starts to become really grateful for what he has. At the very least, he becomes grateful for reliable transportation.
Ain't that the truth, right? It puts things in perspective. Like, that's a good point by you, where like it used to just be a playful conversation about you'll never make the 6 because if you miss the 6, it's okay. You should have just scheduled the 8 and I'll take the 8 and you'll never make the 6. You know, what? I feel like I should do that in a Hitchcock. You'll never make the 6. No, but but and even still, it gets progressively worse to force him to realize, hey, you know what? It's okay if I don't make it there by, Tuesday at 10. I just better darn sure be there before I sit my ass down to some of that cranberry sauce. The only thing that makes this movie required reading is it is the best Thanksgiving movie that's out there. And, this is a recommend. It's certainly not truly required reading, but on Thanksgiving, between November 1st and the 4th Thursday in Thanksgiving, it's worth at least one watch. If you want to try to tell me I have to park my butt in front of Christmas Story like that once a year for Christmas, Plain Strange Automobiles, I would say the same thing if you're over the age of 15. Holla at your boy.
TJ.
I like how he's so smoothly and eloquently taking my tag and made it his own. I respect it and I love it. So I say, Mr. Hand-Me-Down Trousers, no matter how many times you wear it, it's always comfortable. But no, so with regards to this film, is it the best Thanksgiving movie? Absolutely it is. We thought about a couple of other movies that had even the Thanksgiving theme, and I'm still going to say that this is the best one. With regards to whether it is required viewing, I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to give it a rusty trombone and say yes, it is required because, we see these buddy comedies now, and we shake our head at them. We joked about Falcon and Winter Soldier as a buddy cop type of thing. This one actually did it right. This one actually got two actors that can carry something on their own, and it brought them together. Like I said before, you didn't have to do what they're doing now, which is putting together these ridiculous cast list of names. You didn't have to do that. And there were some people back in the day. I mean, look, SNL was still a thing. You could have put Chevy in it and all the other gang, but you didn't. You didn't need to because Steve Martin and John Candy were going to be strong enough to hold it on their own. The scenes are real. It isn't limited to Thanksgiving. This is one of those films that if you're just in a good headspace, you can just watch because it is 100% a great ride. So the reason that I'm saying is required is because there is no reason for this one. I look at Vacation the exact same way because you can just watch it just for wanting to feel something good. You just want to laugh a little bit. This is that movie. It is your buddy comedy that does it right. Even if you're saying that the ending was slow and there wasn't a whole lot going on, there was no conflict then. The hilarious part of this movie is the fact that as long as they were going at each other, that was the hilariousness. Once they started getting along, they were able to travel better, and it was just a whole lot smoother. So I have no problem with the way that this movie ending. I honestly think that the version that we came up with for suspense, I think that would be a much better version for me because I like horror shit. But John Hughes' version, as far as Tokyo J is concerned, is required viewing. Holla at your boy.
Actually, you know what? In order to apologize for my appropriation, I'll say holla at my boy.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to clarify something. As far as the ending, I don't think that the ending is slow or weak. It's just in comparison to the way that some other movies may have handled this, it would have had an escalation. And in this film, there isn't that escalation. There isn't that like the one big crazy thing that happens at the end. The ending for this is entirely character driven, so it takes a different, let's say, route at the end, I think, which makes it a much more powerful movie.
Right.
I like the way that Kyle put it. As far as because of the fact that it is the best Thanksgiving movie, let's just be honest, there aren't that many other options out there. Almost by default makes it required viewing. But at the same time, this is a movie that kind of touches on some real world matters through its characters in the same way that A Christmas Story does for Christmas. The family dynamic, everything that I already said about these two characters and Neil Page's personal journey throughout this film. I think it hits on many of those same points while still being damn funny at the same time. So I'm gonna actually, even though I think that there are some flaws in the film and some moments that kind of take me outside a little bit from the reality it's trying to set, I'm calling it required viewing. I think it's a damn good film, and these two actors it's a tour de force. Any other film would have, every single other character they ran across would have been a cameo. You know?
Yeah.
They didn't do that. They relied on the strengths that they had, and they utilized them to the best way. Let's be honest. Let's just say that crazy ass truck driver with the wife who gave birth sideways.
Oh my God.
Let's just say that was a big name actor. Chevy Chase was in there, although he could have been playing one of his crazy flesh
He
characters.
would have stole the scene.
Exactly.
The scene wouldn't have been about the interaction that scene that you're talking about was specifically about them realizing what he's saying about his wife. She gave birth to a baby sideways. Let that sink in for a second. But had it been Chevy, we would have been focused on Chevy. We wouldn't have been focused on the joke. The joke wouldn't have landed the same.
That's exactly.
Because we would have been looking at how he told the joke, you know?
But what you're trying to say is instead of being focused on Chevy, we were focused on a dude with a long bed Chevy. I got you.
Exactly. But also, mind you, it doesn't take us away from the characters and their reactions to the crazy. You know, so it keeps its focus, and by keeping that focus, it also keeps the breakneck tempo that Kyle said at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, required viewing all the way. I think that as far all of us agree that at least for a Thanksgiving movie, it's required viewing. So after you finish this episode, go home, enjoy your Thanksgiving, watch this before or after your football games, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Ho. You can't just run off like that. Y'all realize what just happened here, right? This is required viewing, but Major League is not. Moving on.
Again, had I been on that show, all right.
This is okay. This is a far better movie than Major League. I think that these two are a little bit more comparable. So what do you guys think are the best Thanksgiving films? Do you agree with us? Is this the best? Let us know in the comments below. And TJ, thanks as always for joining us. Where can we find you?
You can follow me on Twitter and Snapchat if you want to see how I'm living at Tokeo J. That's TOKEOJ. Thanks, brother. Thanks. Just another great one, man.
Wouldn't be Thanksgiving without you, bro. And by the way, how is it that out of John Hughes' 2 road movies, that the one that takes place during the holiday doesn't have the song Holiday Road in it, and yet the one that doesn't take place on the holiday has it? Makes no sense. This movie's music would have been improved with Holiday Road.
COMEDY. Funny. Moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Kyle, where can we find you?
Hey, first of all, I am stoked. I was very surprised that not only did both you guys find it required viewing, both of you rated it higher than me, and I felt like I was the biggest cheerleader going into this episode, and I'm glad we're on agreement at the prowess of this Major League hit. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG, and of course, find me on Instagram, the SOTG, all the same. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. And then check out my UCF Knights writings on sportsmediapass.com, product of Blue HQ Media. And I'm also writing for the Miami Dolphins Wire of USA Today. That's it for me. Demos.
Of course, you can find me on hilaritybydefault.com. Fun stuff every week. Right here on YouTube every Thursday. And of course on Twitter at Default Hilarity, Facebook and Instagram. Hilarity by default. Yes, watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles because unlike other films, this is a true home run.
Oh my
That was
god!
solid. Wow.
Oh my god! Yo!